Welcome back now for the news in detail. We start from Afghanistan, where 30 civilians have been killed in an airstrike in Nangarhar province by Afghan security forces backed by United States air support. Provincial Council member Sohrab Qadri says 40 others were wounded in the raid. He says the attack was aimed at destroying an ISIS sanctuary but hit farmers near a field instead. The Defense Ministry in Kabul confirmed the strike but refused to share casualty details immediately. Earlier today, 20 people were killed in a Taliban suicide attack in southern Zabul province. Zabul's provincial governor told the media the bomb targeted an Afghan intelligence agency office in the city of Kalat. The blast wounded 95 others and damaged a number of office buildings and houses in the vicinity. Meanwhile, Special Envoy to Afghanistan Zalmi Khalilzad will testify before the U.S. House of Representatives Foreign Office Committee today. The committee issued a subpoena to force an explanation from Khalilzad over the cancellation of the Afghan peace process. Committee Chairman Elliot Angel says lawmakers will hear from the envoy in a classified briefing. Angel said he is glad the committee will have this long overdue opportunity to press for answers on the peace plan. The committee will also hold a public hearing on the Trump administration's Afghanistan policy with Assistant Secretary for South Asia Alice Wells. Trump called off peace talks with the Taliban after Khalilzad said he reached an agreement with the group. In a related development, a U.S. watchdog has warned against a rushed peace deal that could leave millions vulnerable to recruitment by terror groups. In a report, Sigar said any effort to reach an agreement between Kabul and the Taliban must include a plan to reintegrate fighters into civilian life. The U.S. Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction said, for lasting peace, state-allied, non-state and illegal armed groups must be demobilized. Inspector General John Sopko said, not including those groups could deter the Taliban from demobilizing and reintegrating. Talks between the U.S. and Taliban were stopped earlier this month when Donald Trump cancelled secret meetings after a U.S. serviceman was killed in Kabul. In Saudi Arabia, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan informed Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman about the worsening situation in occupied Kashmir. During the meeting, the two leaders discussed issues of mutual interest. The Prime Minister also condemned the drone attacks on Saudi oil plants. Foreign Office spokesperson Mohammed Faisal said Khan has been in regular contact with the Saudi Crown Prince on the Kashmir issue. He said Khan will leave for New York to attend the 74th session of the United Nations General Assembly after the visit. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called on India to respect human rights in occupied Kashmir. Guterres told a media briefing he will continue to advocate a peaceful settlement for the disputed territory. New Delhi's crushing curfew and total communications blackout in occupied Kashmir has now entered its 46th day. Meanwhile, Indian forces did not allow separatist leader Sayyid Ali Gilani to hold a press conference at his residence in Srinagar. Local and international media were stopped and forced to leave by Indian occupation forces. India has repeatedly ignored calls by the UN Secretary General calling India to stop violating Kashmir's basic human rights.
I go on with a clear opinion that human rights must be fully respected in the territory, and I go on with a clear opinion that dialogue between India and Pakistan is an absolutely essential element for the solution of the problem.
The Indian opposition has mocked Prime Minister Narendra Modi's mega Houston event, calling it sponsored. Congress leader Priyanka Gandhi says Modi is holding a rally in the U.S. at times when the country is facing crumbling economy and grave unemployment. On her Twitter, Priyanka says investors do not come through sponsored events abroad. She claimed that the Modi's government is not accepting the truth of a failing economy. Washington has called the attack on Saudi Arabia's oil installations an act of war by Iran. Talking to the media in Riyadh, the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said Tehran has put the global energy supply at risk. Speaking to reporters on his three-day visit to the kingdom, Pompeo said an attack of such scale is unprecedented. His remarks came as Saudi Arabia put wreckage from the attack on display. Earlier, the Saudi military spokesman said the recovered weapons wreckage provided undeniable evidence of Iranian involvement. Responding, Iran has denied involvement in the attack and warned to retaliate to any U.S. act of military aggression. War of words between United States and Iran continue. Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif said the United States has escalated the economic war against Iranian civilians by levying more sanctions. Zarif said U.S. President Donald Trump is deliberately targeting ordinary Iranians. In a tweet, the foreign minister called Washington's economic terrorism illegal and inhumane and asked to stop it. The Trump administration imposed new sanctions after accusing Tehran of attacking Saudi oil facilities on Saturday. The White House has not yet revealed the details of new sanctions. The UAE has joined a US-led international maritime security coalition, which Saudi Arabia became a member of a day earlier. In a statement, the UAE's foreign ministry said the step was taken to secure the flow of energy supplies to the global economy. The coalition will protect the Strait of Hormuz, Bab al-Mandab, and the Sea of Oman and the Arabian Gulf. Australia, Bahrain, and the United Kingdom have already joined the alliance. Israel's centrist Blue and White Party has rejected Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's offer to form a coalition government. The Blue and White Party leaders, Moshe Ya'alon, says it will not become part of a Netanyahu-led government. The Prime Minister suggested the arrangement after failing to win a majority in Tuesday's elections. Netanyahu says he is disappointed over the rejection. He says he is ready to hold talks with Blue and White Party leader Benny Gantz. No party has a majority in Israel's latest parliamentary elections, its second since April. More news to come after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. France and Italy have agreed on a new, fairer system to settle migrants across the European Union. The development arises ahead of an interior ministers' meeting in Malta next week. Former French President Emmanuel Macron and Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte have agreed to take in migrants saved from the Mediterranean. The two countries have sought to patch up bruised bilateral relations. President Macron says the European Union has not shown enough solidarity with countries handling first arrivals of the migrants. He said the conflict cannot be solved at the expenses of human lives. Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte said migration issues must be seen out of anti-European propaganda. Mexico has called on a French auction house to stop the sale of 120 pre-Columbian art pieces. The relics are being offered by the Million Auction House in Paris. More details in this report.
The Mexican Foreign Ministry says some artifacts appear to have been stolen or illegally sold, while others may not be authentic. Mexico passed a law in 1972 prohibiting the export of such artifacts. Mexican ambassador to France, Juan Manuel Gomez Robledo, said the auction violates international law.
Mexico is the rightful owner of these artworks, and we have come here to express our unhappiness and to explain why this violates not only Mexican law but also international law.
The collection includes sculptures, masks and religious artifacts. A French couple, Manichac and Jean Orant, started the collection in the 1960s. Auction house president Alejandro Milon says the French couple fulfilled all the criteria to justify their ownership of the collection.
The question is a very simple one. Am I a French person who owns art, comes from outside the West, and is my ownership under threat? Clearly, that's what's at stake today.
The tensions over the pre-Columbian art pieces come amid a wider discussion. It revolves around whether Western collectors and museums should return objects to their countries of origin. Collectors and museums often argue that the antique artifacts lack adequate care.
Some of Eastern Germany's communist-era concrete apartment blocks are being transformed into a giant art project. When the refurbishment began in 2018, the idea was to create something original that residents could identify with. More in this report.
A reminder of the communist era, the vast concrete Plattenbau tower blocks surrounding cities in eastern Germany are usually thought of as eyesores. A new urban culture project in the city of Halle hopes to promote social cohesion by turning architectural sins into monumental masterpieces. The grey Plattenbau blocks are made of prefabricated concrete slabs. They are often associated with poverty and tension. Artists aim to paint these buildings with bright colors and transform them into artworks to give the apartment blocks a look of life rather than squalor.
We have specific themes, as you can see on the buildings. There is a common thread that guides us through all the stories we can see here. In principle, the message is that nothing lasts, everything changes.
The often disdained Plattenbau complex overlooks the prestigious Franke Foundation, an educational institution dating back to the 17th century. Under the communist regime, the modern apartments were prized among high-profile party officials who called them bigwig blocks.
In the places where we paint, people generally don't have good social interactions with each other. When they look at our walls, even if they argue about it or don't like it, it is a good opportunity for people to approach each other and talk about the art.
The housing association responsible for the blocks will spend €7 million on the project to cover 8,000 square meters of wall space on 4 buildings.
New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has met her Japanese counterpart Shinzo Abe in Tokyo. The meeting aims to strengthen the country's strategic partnership. Up for discussion have been bilateral trade and regional issues, expanding the comprehensive and progressive agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. Prime Minister Ardern is on her first official visit to Japan. Earlier, Ardern met Britain's Trade Minister Liz Truss to discuss the country's possible accession to the trade deal ratified by 11 countries last December. Chinese smartphone giant Huawei is launching its latest high-end smartphone, the Mate 30, in Munich today. It is the first time the company will reveal its response to the United States sanctions. Huawei has kept a veil of secrecy over its plans to overcome the barriers imposed by the US. The Chinese telecoms giant will showcase its Mate 30 range, which includes the latest 5G technology. The smartphone maker is caught in the fallout of a trade war between the US and China. US President Donald Trump added Huawei to a blacklist, barring it from exports in May. India's crushing lockdown of occupied Kashmir is forcing the valley's apple crop to rot in orchards. Apples are the most popular produce and the largest crop of the occupied valley. Farmers and traders say the total clampdown has cut transport links with the buyers abroad, plunging the industry into turmoil. Apples are the lifeblood of the occupied valley's economy, involving 3.5 million people, which are around half of the population of the state. The traders said the continuing lack of internet and mobile connections has paralyzed their businesses. Amnesty International has already reported the curfew is causing a humanitarian crisis, shortage of food and lack of health facilities. Hurricane Humberto has grown to Category 3 strength as its wind and rain shake Bermuda. Electrical company Balco says the storm knocked out power for nearly 16,000 homes. The island is already reeling from devastation caused by Hurricane Dorian earlier this month. The National Hurricane Center says coastal flooding from the storm's surge and high-speed breaking waves are expected in the region. Winds are extending outward up to 145 kilometers from the center. Bermudan officials have warned residents to stay indoors and prepare for possible tornadoes. Now let's have a look at the weather update around the world. With the weather update, we come to the end of this bulletin. For more news and updates, keep watching Indus News.